Nurses share the most shocking deathbed confessions. The internet is filled with chilling, heartbreaking, and sometimes bizarre stories. But few are as haunting as the last words of a dying person. Nurses, who often serve as witnesses to these final moments, have shared some of the most shocking deathbed confessions they've encountered. These stories, originally shared by Reddit users, give us a rare glimpse into the thoughts and regrets of people in their final hours. 1. They know when it's time. I've had a few people casually tell me, "I'm going to die today." The first time someone who was awake, alert, and not in distress told me that, then actually died later that day, I was spooked. 2. The man who fed people in the floor. A hospice nurse shared a chilling experience about a patient no one knew much about. He had no family, no visitors, and his only legal contact was a lawyer. One night, as she checked on him, he suddenly bolted upright and screamed that she needed to protect him from the people in the floor. Then, just as suddenly, he collapsed and went into cardiac arrest. It was revealed that he had been serving a life sentence for murdering his ex-wife and her new boyfriend before being granted compassionate parole due to terminal cancer. The nurse couldn't shake the feeling that the people in the floor were demons coming to take him. 4. A young boy's final question. A nurse recalled holding the hand of a 14-year-old boy about to undergo emergency heart surgery. He was nervous, and she reassured him that he would be fine. As the anesthesia took hold, he gripped her hand tightly and asked, "I'm going to die, aren't I?" She lied, telling him he'd wake up soon. He never did. Even years later, she remembers the fear in his eyes and still carries the guilt of that moment. A nurse's prediction comes true. An 81-year-old man with heart failure looked his nurse in the eyes and calmly stated, "It's okay. I know I'm going to die today." The nurse reassured him that he wouldn't. He passed away just after midnight. The nurse later reflected, "I like to think one of his last thoughts was, that nurse was right." Just 6. The comforting lie that meant everything. A man who survived a near-fatal accident recalled how a paramedic kept reassuring him that he would be fine, even though he knew they were lying. He spent 3 days on life support, but that small kindness made all the difference. You didn't lie to the kid. You were just being his teammate. 7. A chilling deathbed confession. A nurse working in oncology had an elderly patient with brain metastases who rarely made sense due to his condition. One day, he grabbed her hand, looked her in the eye and said, "You know, I have killed so many people." She was frozen in shock, unsure if it was a real confession or a hallucination. He passed away later that evening, leaving her forever wondering about the truth behind his words. A mother and son's final moments. A nurse recalled the tragic case of a mother and son who had been cooking meth when their house exploded. Both were severely burned beyond recovery. In their final moments, they held hands, apologized to each other, and passed away together. Regrets and reincarnation. A young man with AIDS who had refused treatment told his nurse, "I hope in my next reincarnation I take better care of myself. I wish I had taken the meds." Captain. The daughter who wasn't there. A young CNA working in dementia care was helping an elderly resident with a bath. He was lucid that day, making normal conversation. But as she finished, he suddenly grabbed her hand and whispered, "Thank you for being here. Daughter's name." She later learned that his daughter hadn't visited in a long time. As she tidied up, she patted his hand in farewell, only to realize he had passed away. She was only 16 at the time, and the moment shaped her understanding of death and love forever. 11. I wish I had lived differently. A patient once told a nurse that he wished he had worked less and spent more time traveling and being with family. He died the next day. The confession stuck with the nurse for years, so much so that he retired early to avoid the same regret. At 12. Dark secrets from dementia patients. A nursing assistant shared that some of the most haunting confessions came from elderly women with dementia. Many recounted violent assaults they suffered as children, often describing how their parents didn't believe them. Whether these stories were real or the result of fading memories remained a mystery. For 13. You looked like an angel. A CNA recalled wearing a new light blue scrub set, one that was technically out of uniform. That day, a woman with severe liver failure, who never spoke, suddenly looked straight at her and said softly, "You look like an angel." That was the last thing she ever said. She died in her sleep that night. The CNA never told anyone because she started to doubt herself, but she never forgot that moment. Their final thoughts. These stories, shared by real nurses and caregivers on Reddit, remind us how fragile life is. Whether they are chilling confessions, heartfelt regrets, or simple moments of peace. Deathbed words carry weight beyond the gray. They make us reflect on our own lives, on the things we might regret, the people we cherish, and the choices we still have time to change. Perhaps the greatest takeaway from these stories is a simple one. Don't wait until the end to say what truly matters.